All right. Okay, Boker Tov. Today's stuff is Kuf Mem 140, and we are in the penultimate parak. We are in finally a new parak, Misha Mace, which deals with initially the issue here of leaving over an estate, boys and girls, men and women, who are the heirs, and it actually has to be girls in this context, because the lacha is that the males inherit, and the females, if they are under the age of bagrut, maturity, we might sort of say 20, 18, whatever we would say for the Gemara, that was 12 and a half, okay, then they are supported by the estate until they either get married or until they hit bagrut, until they hit that age of maturity. And the Mishnah has said that, okay, so, and that means the best way to think about this conceptually, it's like that they have a lien on, like a debt is owed to them from the estate. It's an obligation that the estate has to them. So therefore, if it's nechasim muatim, the important concepts here are nechasim merubim or nechasim muatim. If it's nechasim merubim, I guess we'll start with that. An estate with a lot of assets, that it means that the girls get supported and the males get, their inheritance. And basically what we ended with yesterday is the definition of merubi means 1 penny more than, or I'll say whatever, than the amount needed to support those girls until they hit the age of bagrus. So if there are 5 girls of all different ages, and you do the math, and there are 20, 20 girl years until they hit bagrus, and it costs, $1,000 a year, to support somebody in terms of the food and the clothing or whatever, then that's $20,000 for all those girls until they each individually hit bagrus, and you put aside $20,000. And anything more than that is nechasim merubim, because that means that there's at least something left over for the boys to inherit. Okay, so in that scenario, the boys inherit something, whatever exceeds the amount of the support, and the girls get supported. And if there's less than that, then only the girls get supported, and the boys inherit nothing. Okay, so that's the basic framing of the Mishnah. So let's take a look at what the Gemara now does with this. So the Gemara now picks up on Kuf Mem and 3 lines from the top. Pshita, says the Gemara, it's obvious, merubim v'nisma'atu. If they started with a lot, okay, using my scenario, let's not make it just that the boys get $1. Let's make it, let's make it that there's $25,000. $20,000 is put aside for the girls, and $5,000 now is set aside for the boys. And then the property became worth less. How did the property become worth less? So, 2 scenarios. Let's say that it was basically because, that was the money that was in the stocks. And then all of a sudden, the value of the stock plummeted right after the death. And now what had been $25,000 is only worth $10,000. Okay, another interesting scenario that the Rashbam discusses is, let's say it's not really that the property is worth less, but let's say the price of food has shot up. Okay, so it used to be that it only took $20,000. We thought when we initially did the assessment, it was only going to take $20,000 to support these girls until they got to the age of maturity. Now, with the new price of food, it's going to take $40,000. Okay, but either way you look at it, okay, now because of either the rising price of the food or because the stocks, the value of the stock has plummeted, at this stage you need all the money to go to support the girls. So when the guy died, the boys were going to get $5,000, and the $20,000 was set aside for the girls. Now, a month later, all of the money is needed to support the girls. Okay, got it? Because either the actual value of the estate has gone down, or the price of food has gone up, or whatever it is, and you need all the money to support the girls. What is the story? Do the boys still get their $5,000? That's the question. Okay, so it says for zochu behen yorshim. Yeah, the heirs, the boys, still get their $5,000, and if it's going to cost more now to support the girls, okay, so whatever, you use that $20,000 you set aside to support them, and if it's not going to buy enough food for them, then before they hit bagrus, they're going to not have enough money. All right, that's going to be tough luck, and they're going to have to go asking for charity or something. Okay, or if the value of the stocks went down and what had been worth, $25,000 now worth, let's say it's half, $12,500. So then the way at least the Rashbam says it is like, now that's an interesting question. What do you say? Do the boys have 5,000? Still, that's like protected totally, and the girls have 7,500, or more logically, because if you view it like that they've got property, right? Logically, that should be like shared equally. So if if this was like had been worth 20,000, and that's what you needed to support the girls, and this was worth 5,000, whether it's land or stocks or whatever, and that was what the boys inherited. And then there was a big dip in the market, right? And now this is worth 10,000, and this is worth 2,500, right? So in that type of a case, basically you would say, okay, so it's like, it's not like now the boys still have 5,000. If the value of the property went down, why should they be protected from their, from the fact that the stocks that were assigned to them has gone down, or the real estate that was assigned to them. So in that case, everybody loses proportionally. Okay, but still, you don't say, no, now the girls get this because they still need $20,000 to be supported. So in the case where everything went down, everybody loses out proportionally, okay? And it's not like they still have a right to be supported and you're going to assign all the money to them. In the case where the cost of food has gone up, that would be different. Let's say this was the division and it was cost $20,000, and now it's going to cost $40,000 to support them, okay? Because the cost of food has doubled, okay? In that case, they've got their $5,000. That's what their inheritance was. And the girls have $20,000 now to support them, and the cost of food has gone up. Okay, sorry, what are we going to do? Okay, now this one makes sense. This one is basically, he died, we set aside this money for you. That was you getting your money for your food. This was their inheritance. And now we can't help it if the value of food starts changing. What?
Can help it.
I understand, but I'm saying, like, you understand the logic for that. However, in the other case, all right, let me finish. In the other case where the value of stuff has gone down, right? So, like, and now this is worth this, like, you might be inclined to say, 1 minute. If conceptually we think of it as they have a lien on the estate to be supported, right? So in this case, when the value has gone down, okay, but then they haven't collected their full value. Why don't they keep on taking money from the estate? The estate owes them to be supported. So there's two ways of thinking about this. One is that it's like their debt has already been paid off. This money has already been assigned to them. So, now that property values have changed, your debt has already been paid off. Okay. And the other is, but then the question is, and the missing point of this Gemara is, when did these changes happen? Did Beis Din already come, or the brothers already come and say, let's take this money and put it in a bank account for you? If they said that, then you understand. Then, like, okay, then, let's take these stocks, sign them over in your name, take this piece of land, signed it over in your name. Then you understand that the debt was paid off, and what happens afterwards, happens afterwards. What are you going to do? Okay. But if the father just died and nobody's done anything yet, and 2 days later, the value of the stock has dropped, why has the debt been paid off? They owe the money. Let them keep on taking the money from the estate until their debt has been paid off. So, right, I understand. You could say it in both cases, but in this one, it's clearer. So, and it sounds like we're talking even in that case where nothing has been given to them. The father just died. Logically, this would be the division. 2 days later, the value went down. All right, but if they're real creditors, then they need to keep on getting paid until the debt is paid off. So it sounds like, and sort of Tosfos makes this point, that we want, in this case, to protect the brothers. And the reason we want to protect the brothers is, because we want there to be some nachala d'oraita, right? We want there to be some real inheritance. It is not ideal if all of the money goes to support the girls. We'll do it if we've got to do it, because that's, the girls need the support, and they're not seen as, in that society as being able to earn money for themselves or whatever. They need to be protected. But so obviously that's what's going to happen. If it's a small estate, they get supported. But it's not great, because that means there's no real inheritance of the Torah. Okay, so therefore, in a case like this, even if none of the money has yet been given to them, it's just that when he died, it would have worked out this way. And now the values have dropped, and now they're not going to get enough money to support themselves. In that case, we're going to say, since it's a moment of death, we would have given them $5,000. They're going to keep that $5,000, okay? Or this piece of land, whatever the proportional amount is.
Are we saying it makes a difference in the end when the division was 2 days later?
No, the Gemara is not being mechalek. So it doesn't matter. Even if the property wasn't physically given to them, if it was put in their bank account, the debt was paid off, it all makes sense. But the Gemara seems to say it could have happened the minute after the father died, that the property values changed, and the brother, or the cost of food changed, or whatever it was, and the brothers already got their inheritance. Why? If they were real creditors, then until the debt is paid, the debt isn't paid. So it seems to be no. We're just protecting the interest. We're not the interests, because that's said wrong. The interests, we care about the girls. They're not going to be able to earn money for themselves. We need to protect their interests. But we're protecting sort of the religious importance of there being a nachala d'oraita.
At the expense of the girls.
At the expense of the girls. So in the case where when the father died, there was a big enough estate for them to get something, that even though it hadn't been divided yet, things have changed now, they're still going to get something. Yes.
This could work the other direction too.
Well, that's what we're going to get to.
Okay.
What happens if it's the other direction, okay? So the Gemara says that's pshita, certainly not pshita to me, but for the Gemara, that's pshita. Pshita, merubim v'nismatu for zachu b'hem yarshin. They already got a piece of the estate, and maybe they'll lose proportionally, depends on what the scenario was, but we're not going to take away a piece of the estate that should have been coming to them if at the moment of death it was a big estate. Okay, now muatim v'nisrabu mai. How about if it was the opposite? Okay, the estate, again, it's going to cost $20,000 to support them. The estate here was only worth $15,000. So they weren't even going to have enough money to fully support the girls. Okay. And then a day after the father died, the values of the stock, the values of the property, whatever, shot up. And now this is now worth $25,000. Okay. What would you say here? Would you say the girls have gotten the entire estate? Because at the moment of death, the entire estate was enough, or not even enough, but to support them. So that was totally awarded to the girls. Okay. And now the value has gone up. So now they'll just keep it. Or do you say, no, since at the end of the day, they only are getting it to support themselves, we will, if there's anything extra, as it were, we're going to award that now to the boys. All right. So, and based on what I've already told you, this idea that Tosfos introduces, not in the Gemara, that we want to protect the idea of nachala d'oraita, it's pretty clear how we would look at it. Okay, and that's what the Gemara is going to say.
The only problem with that is, then 2 days later it can go back down to what it was.
Right, and that is a question. You keep on changing it. Okay, exactly. And also in this case, would we say this? It's one thing to say this if we haven't yet put the money in their bank account. If you haven't put the money in the bank account, then this is obvious. If you treat them as creditors, if the state owes them $20,000, and when the father dies, it's worth $15,000. And he hasn't yet taken payment of it or whatever, okay? And then the value went up, and now it's worth $25,000. So of course he doesn't take the whole $25,000. He takes the amount of his debt, okay? So certainly if you look at them as creditors and they haven't gone into their bank account, that would be true, okay? The interesting question is, and this would be a debate of Rashbam and Tosfos, what if it already was put in their bank account, okay? And Liam, let's make it easier. Let's say it's $20,000. So if you look at them as creditors and it was already put in their bank account, you would say the debt has been paid off, and now it's their property value that has gone up. Okay, but let's take a look at what. But you would have said that before as well. Okay, so let's take a look at what the Gemara says. Okay, pshita merubim v'nismatu kfar zochvem yarshin muatim v'nisrabu mai b'shus yarshin kaimi. Is it in the under? Even when they're going to get paid for their support, fundamentally, we look at the property as still being under the control of the sons, which makes sense. You look at them as creditors, and you look at the estate as being inherited by the son. So if they're basically creditors and the estate is inherited by the sons, so then fine, the values went up, but they don't get the increase. They just are able to collect the amount owed to them. Okay. Therefore, under the control of the heirs, the value went up, and the girls only get their support. What do you say? They're removed from here. Once at the time of death, it was a case of muatim. We looked at the value of the estate and we said there's only enough or not even enough to support the girls. Then we're basically saying we don't look at it at that moment as the boys inherited and the girls have a lien. And that we would just say there was nothing for the boys to inherit. It all went to the girls. And if it all went to the girls, then the value went up under the girls, while it was under the girls' ownership. And they get the benefit. Okay.
Ask if it goes up and down again.
I know. So no, the Gemara is not going to ask that, but that is an excellent question. You're right. I mean, once we're reassessing, we should constantly be reassessing. Right. Okay. Absolutely. And then that really puts the girls in a bad position, which just basically means they're never going to get more than their support, which makes sense. Okay. But they could always stand to get less, even if there was enough money initially. And so, yeah.
So is that's how it worked in terms of determining what the calculated there's 5 years until she's probably going to get
Right.
married. This is what she's
Well,
gonna
until
get.
she's a Bulgarian, right?
Oh, until
Okay,
she's-
yeah,
okay.
right.
And we're going to.
I mean, it's true. If she got married earlier, she would stop being supported, but you don't have a finite sort of way to determine, you don't have knowledge when she'll get married. So what you would use was the maximum possible support would be until she was a Bulgarian.
And do you factor in increased costs? I don't know. I guess I was.
Oh, increased costs of food or whatever.
Over time.
She needs each year she gets an allowance.
Right.
I was imagining it in one.
Right.
Which seems a lot harder to.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Well, I imagine in terms of figuring out the amount, you would try to estimate, as their food bills would go up as they would start getting older or whatever. I mean, I assume you would figure that in terms of estimating the cost. But the question about how the funds would be distributed is an excellent question, and it goes back to how we think about this. Do we put all the money into a bank account for them and have some apotropos, because remember, they're all minors, right? Have some apotropos basically control the funds and determine how to dole it out, right? Or is all the money held by the sons, and and then they have to come when they need more money, okay? So it's going to seem, Tosos is going to talk about a moment in time when they were gove it. So it does actually seem, it doesn't happen automatically, but it does actually seem that yes, they would come and demand it from the estate, and the money would be taken and put aside for them. Okay, and then presumably some apotropos would control its distribution.
And if something happened, like there was a famine and the cost of food went
Right.
up.
Tough luck for them. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Even though the result will be that they won't be supported, or the value that was stocks, they assigned the stocks in their name, and then the value of the stocks went down, or land. That's what it basically says. It's going to be tough luck for them, and now we're seeing that if the value goes up, right, that they might have to give the increase of the value over the amount needed to support them back to the brothers. So it's basically they're never going to get more than their support. And if the value goes down, they're not going to be able to make up the difference, right? So it's the worst of both worlds. So the Gemara says, although we haven't given that answer to that case yet. Toshma, come in here. Dam Rabbi Yasi, Rabbi Yochanan, Yisomim shekadmu machru ben chosim uatim, ma shemachru machru. If the heirs went, and in the case of Nechasim Muatim, it was only $20,000 or less. And here these are the girls, and they're getting all of this because it's going to take $20,000 to support them. Okay, and comes along these guys, the sons, who basically they're told, "Hey guys, tough luck," and they sold it all off to somebody. Okay, the halacha is that it's a good sale. Now, it's a good sale, and the money still might have to go to the girls, okay? But the girls can't object and say you had no right to sell it. And if they were stupid and sold it for too little, right, it's tough luck on the girl. So it's not like they really get anything from having made that sale. That's not our point right now. The point is, though, the sale was valid, which means whose property is this really? It's really theirs. Their property that the girls have a lien on. Okay, so since it's their property because they can sell it and the girls have a lien, then that means that if the property value went up, the girls aren't going to get now it's $25,000. They have a $20,000 debt against this property, which is inherited by the sons. It makes sense that that's what's happening here. The sons are the heirs. The estate owes money to the girls, okay, and therefore the sons can sell it. If now that's worth a lot more money, the girls are not going to get more than the debt, than the $20,000. The irony, though, is that if the property goes down, right, if it was worth $40,000 and now it's worth $20,000, if it really is just a debt, they should still get their full $20,000. Right, that was the first case, and that was no. Once they got a piece of the estate, that's being protected. Okay, so again, it's not consistent. Conceptually, really, it is that the girls are creditors, but the reality, but if it was a big estate and the boys got something at the moment of death, then that they're not going to lose that. That is protected.
So the logical thing to do would be to immediately sell for the $20,000, so that the daughters don't have this concern.
You mean
of the value of the property?
Of the value of the property taking, right? Changed it into cash,
Right.
and then put that cash away, right? Exactly.
Gemara-
Well, you could. The Gemara isn't giving business advice. The Gemara is just talking about halacha. Now, I should say, I want to say one thing. There's an important machlokes between Tosas and the Rashbam about till when can the boys sell it. Let's say the girls come to the court and they say, okay, we want to do an assessment of the value of the property, about what's going to take to support us, and we want that money that put aside for us. And Beis Din comes along and they say, okay, fine, the whole estate is worth whatever it is, $20,000. That's exactly the value that's going to cost. This property is yours. We're awarding this property to you. Okay, and that's Beis Din was go over the property for the girls. According to the Rashbam, then it's too late for the boys to sell it, which makes sense.
And if it went down, then the
And
boys don't get it.
Whatever, yeah,
You know,
it's
or they lose
exactly,
it.
exactly. Then it's totally the girls, they get the increased value, whatever, it makes total sense. Toso says even after that moment, even after that point, it's still under the boys' control, which basically means, and this gets, I think, somewhat to Jenna's question. They're not like a standard creditor. A standard creditor is you owe me $20,000, give me the money, I take the money, I walk away. Here, it's a concept of ongoing support, right? So it's really not like they're coming with a $20,000 debt. It's really like the estate has an obligation to continue to support them until a certain time. So it's like today, the estate owes them $2. Tomorrow, it'll owe them $2 again, and another $2 again every single day, right? It has to support them. So in that way, even if the property was set aside, it was more like set aside for them to ensure that they would get support from it. But it was never given to them. And therefore, in that case, it's always really still owned by the sons, and the sons could always still sell it. So that's like an important conceptual question. Is there ever a moment where the girls really take full possession of that full amount? And according to the Rashbam, the answer is yes. And according to Tosfos, the answer is no. So if you want to look at just like the first line in Tosfos, he says, Yisomim shekadmu, he says, Pirish b'kuntris, shekadmu machru kodem she'amdu b'din ligvos levanos nechasim uatim. Okay, before there was a court case and it was awarded to the girls, that's when the boys can sell it. Even if they seize the property. Oh, he will have based it.
Why can't you say Makov Beitin Yafe?
Because conceptually you don't see it that the basin is now saying here this is yours. What they're doing is here this is the property of the estate that is set aside to support you, but the support is an ongoing support. It's not like one big debt that's paid at that moment, right? Which makes total sense. Yes. All right.
If the boys sell the land, then do the girls have a lien on the buyer?
No, because the girls only have a right to be supported by the estate with the money that's actually Mazon Ha'isha ve'abanos is only I think it doesn't apply to Lakuchos because we sort of discussed it yesterday when we were talking about support of the widow because what do you call it? Because it's not fair that meaning it's not fair for a buyer that he should have a lien where the amount of the lien is fluctuates and it's not clear what it is. So that's a good point. But yes, the girls only have a right to collect from the estate while it's under the control of the boys. Okay, so if it gets sold, they don't have liens on the property because we have to protect the buyers because this is an indeterminate amount about how much it's going to require to support them. Okay, but the money that the boys would get, that still could go to support them. Okay, they don't not only property that real estate they have a right to. Okay, let's keep on going. Okay, Yosef Rabbi Yirmiyah coming to Rabbi Avo. Rabbi Yirmiyah was sitting in front of Rabbi Avo. The Kaboy Mine and asked him, Amanaso Mao Shetimai bin Chasim. How about, so this is sort of getting to a similar scenario we was just talking about with David. How about the guy dies, and not only are there the boys and the girls, okay, but there's also a widow. Now, let's say this case, that there was some money here for the estate, for the boys to get it when the guy died, okay? So, there we go. Okay, there was some money, so we thought that there was going to be enough to support the girls and something for the boys to inherit. But what we forgot was the dead person's widow. Okay,
The
mother,
potentially,
right? She could be stepmother. Okay, so now she also gets supported from the estate until she gets married or until they decide to pay her off or she decides to take a lump sum payment. So we don't know how much that's going to be. If nobody gives her the lump sum payment, maybe she's never going to get remarried or whatever. Okay, but let's for now, even though we don't know the amount, let's for now estimate it at $10,000. Okay, so here's the question. In this case, right, boys get 5, girls, she gets 10, whatever. But is that so? That would be a Chasim Berubim scenario. Do we factor in the amount owed to the widow?
How can we not?
I'll tell you in a minute. If we factor in the amount owed to the widow, then the estate is only worth $15,000, and then the girls get all of it. If we don't factor it in, then you do this. Now you should say, what difference does it make? Okay, whether you factor it or not factor it in, either way, she's going to come and want her debt to be paid, right? Yes.
Right.
Did she get it from the sons though?
What?
Who's the one who's responsible for
The boys.
the boys are, right?
Right.
So then would she be capped at 5,000 once she runs through there?
Right. So that would be an interesting question as well. Meaning, if in this scenario, right, if you first sort of, so yeah, I think I might have even made it too complicated. But right, the question is, let's say, forget this. Let's say there was not enough for the boys, okay, and they had equal liens on the estate, right? So there wouldn't be any preference for the daughters over the widow. They'd all sort of have to share, and in the end, they'd all be capped. They would all sort of lose out, okay? But the question, but that's a good question. So in this case, what difference does it make if we consider this to be? The question is, do we consider this to be? It was merubim, and then it was if like, oh, what a surprise! The widow comes along, and now it's nisma too, right? And now it's merubim that's now shrunk because now we've realized that there's this other debt. Or does it start as muatim? Okay, now what is the nafkamina between those two? So the nafkamina, I have to remind myself here what the Rashbam said. Hold on, let me just make sure I get this right. I think it was. If it was mu'atim, then yes. So let's make it an easier case, okay? Let's say it was 5,000, like this. So if you say that first we sort of assign that before we look at the size of the estate was 25,000. Okay, so in that type of a case, like this whole estate was 25,000, we'd say fine, 20,000 to the girls, 5,000 to the almana, the boys inherit nothing. That would be if we would sort of start by viewing it as though it redefined the size of the estate. Okay, let's say, however, that we were, and in that fine. Let's say, however, we viewed it as if we first viewed it, there was a large estate, merubim, and then she came along and wanted her $5,000. Where would she take that money from? So do you remember what the Gemara said by merubim v'nismatu? What did the Gemara say about merubim v'nismatu? For zachu habanim, right? What's the phrase? For zachu behem yorshin. So in that type of a case, if you started by awarding the boys their $5,000, and then a creditor shows up, okay, it's not clear. Maybe she would take it equally from the two of them. Maybe she would take it all from the girls. But there's a sense in that case for zachu behem yorshin. So if you start by saying, 1 minute, here's the estate, $25,000, 20,000 to them, 5,000 for them, the boys got nothing. So you'd start by saying the boys got nothing. So they started with nothing, they end with nothing. But if you start by saying, no, they got 20, they got 5, oh wait, here's the almana, then you'd say kfar zachu behem hayorshin.
Well, that's what I was asking before.
Right. And in that case, it's not clear. Would you say in that case she takes equally from the two, or she splits it within the girls? But anyway, we would think about it differently if based on this principle of
I still understand how you don't factor into the very beginning.
I know. Logically, you totally should. I understand. I totally agree with you. It's not a surprise. The guy dies, and the first thing you look at is the widow and the kids. Right.
Also, is there a question as to which takes preference, the chiyuv of the ketubah payment or the mizonot to the daughters?
Right. So that's not clear yet. I think in the end we say that it's equal, but the Gemara has not addressed that yet. Okay. So then, if it is equal, then of course you should look at it all immediately. Right. Exactly.
What if there's absolutely nothing left? Do the heirs have an obligation to support the widow and the daughters? There's nothing at all.
No, they don't. Okay. It's only a lien on the estate, not on the people. Okay. Okay, so the Gemara says like this. Wait a minute, let me just check one thing in Tosfos. Okay, anyway, so let's take a look. So the Gemara says like this. Okay, so Miyamrina and Kivin the Islam Mizoni Mimata. Since she gets Mizonos, she's Mima 8, and you look at it, start by Nechosi Muatim, and the boys are out. Odiama Kivin the Ilu Minsava. Leisla 1 minute. The widow doesn't necessarily going to get mizonos. She could always get married, and then she would no longer be entitled to mizonos. Hashanami leisla. So you don't take her portion off the top.
About the girls.
I know. So Tosas asks, Tosas doesn't make any sense. The same is exactly true about the girls. The widow is in no different state than the girls, right? It's a hard Gemara to understand. But the Gemara, so I don't know the answer, but let's just work with it. Okay? So the Gemara is basically saying, since the widow won't necessarily always get supported, you should view her as a stage 2 and not a stage 1. Like, you don't factor in initially. And since you didn't factor in initially, you considered them merubim, and the boys were already zocha to a portion of the estate, and therefore they're not going to totally lose out. They retain some ownership of that, even now that the widow is introduced at stage 2. Okay, so now let's say you say, since were she to get married, she wouldn't have mizonos, therefore you view her as a stage 2, and you assess the estate initially as a nechasim merubim estate, which is going to work to the benefit of the boys. Hashtanami leisa. So here too also you sort of don't factor her in initially. So bas ishto mahu shatimai. Now here's nechasim. So now here's another thing you probably don't know about yet, which is another person who gets supported by the estate. A classic thing that they would write. I mean, they don't. It's not always. You'd have to demand it and get the husband to agree to it. But here a woman comes and she's getting married, and it's a second marriage for her, and she has a daughter from her first marriage, and she says to the guy, "Fine, you want me to marry you? Fine. Here's what I want you to write in the ksuva, though. I want you to write in the ksuva that if you die, that then my daughter here from the first marriage, right? She's not going to be supported. She's not your kid. I want you to write in the ksuva that she's entitled to 5 years of support if you die from the estate." Okay, so that would be a classic thing that would be written in for somebody that would marry and take on stepkids,
So it's sort of
specifically
like
stepdaughters.
to his buttons different, but not different.
Right. Okay, so in that case, okay, do you also factor in, so here's her daughter from a different marriage, okay, and that's going to be $5,000, okay? You also factor that in, and then to initially say what the size of the estate was. And again, the reason it matters is if it's nechasim merubim, the sons have a certain amount that's protected, okay? They're going to maintain some of the estate.
The wife remarries, does she still get the ketub?
From her first husband? Yes. She gets the lump sum payment. She doesn't get the ongoing support. Yeah. Okay. So, bas ishto marshatimai benechasim. Miamini kimidchi minsava nami isla umimata. So here's an interesting irony about the stepdaughter. She's protected. She's given 5 years of support. On the one hand, that's not until Bagrus. That might be that she only hits the age of 10. Okay. On the support of the girl. Of the stepdaughter. The stepdaughter, the classic would be she'd be supported for 5 years when the husband would agree to it.
Regardless of whether she hits Batra.
Regardless of whether she hits Bagras, but not regardless of whether she gets married. If she gets married, the support stops. Okay? So it says like this. I'm sorry. No, I take that back. Regardless of whether she hits Bagras and regardless of whether she gets married, excuse me, she's just given a flat 5 year support. Okay. So therefore, because she's going to always get that support 5 years, whether she hits Bagras, whether she gets married. So it's a little ironic, right? It's better in a way than a normal daughter. Okay. It's whatever specified, but it seems like there's a standard of 5 years. Okay. So do we say that therefore she's definitely going to get 5 years of support? Right, and therefore we should take that off the top. Do we say miamin and kiven dechi minsava nami isla umimata? Even were she to get married, she would still collect her support, and therefore it's a definite debt that the estate owes, and therefore we should take it off the top.
Mimata means it's taken from the estate.
She's mimait the estate, and we consider it nechasim muatim, not rabim v'nismatu, but we start by being muatim.
Right.
Oh, dear, what do we say? There's one way that the stepdaughter wouldn't get supported if she were to die. Okay, so therefore, below mimata, it's still not definite that money is coming out of the estate. I understand. I understand. It's pretty unlikely. It's a young girl. The likelihood she's going to die. Okay, I know. Maybe since were she to die, she wouldn't get it. We won't consider it like we start by taking that money off the top. So Baal Chov Moshe, you might. How about the Stam creditor? Okay, forget these people. Stam, the estate owes this guy this whatever. The estate just owes this guy $5,000. Okay, So do we say that therefore the guy died, $25,000, $5,000 is owed to creditors, $20,000 is needed for the girls, the boys get nothing. End of story.
That's what I would say.
That's what I would say. Or do we say no? The estate was worth $25,000, $20,000 for them, $5,000 for them. Comes along a creditor, he's owed $5,000 for zochu behen hayorshim. Okay, and maybe it's shared equally, but it's not all taken from the boys. All right, which way do you say it? Okay, so the Gemara says like this: even if the Baal Chov dies, in this way the money is definitely going to have to leave the estate, right? Because as opposed to the stepdaughter, whatever, even if the Baal Chov dies, his heirs can come and collect the money owed to him. Okay, so that money is always going to have to get paid out. Do we say, Kivan dechimayis nami isla, he's still entitled even if he's dead, his heirs are entitled, mimai, so we have to take that money, and deduct it from the value of the estate. Oh, deal more, do we say, Kivan the machashi guvain, but it still hasn't been collected, lo mimai, it doesn't matter, we still don't deduct it from the state. Okay, now, of course, a lot of this sounds crazy, right? You would think you would have to factor all this stuff in to determine how much is left. The fact that we're pushing and saying we don't is, again, this gets back to Tosas's point that we want to try to make sure to try to I wouldn't say protect the son's interests, but we want to try to make there to be a nachala d'oraita. The effect of all of this is saying we don't deduct the value of the estate. We consider it a large estate. And then we factor in the creditors and the widow and all of that. So it's merubin v'nismatu. The effect that has is that we get to award some of the property to the sons, and therefore they're left with some property. So it has the effect of retaining some degree of a nachala d'oraita. I'll take a minute. I just want to read one more line in the Gemara, which basically just does the same thing in reverse. It says like this. Some start in the opposite direction. Does a Baal Chov mimayit bin chasim? And even if you say that a Baal Chov is mimayit bin chasim, so but ishto marshetimat. How about the stepdaughter? Because maybe only the Baal Chov who gets it, even if he's dead. But would the stepdaughter also be mimayit? And even if you say the stepdaughter maybe the stepdaughter gets it because she's going to get it whether she gets married or not. But how about the widow? Would the widow be mimayit bin chasim? Okay, so that's so it's the same thing but reverse, but it's a huge difference which way you do it, because based on the order you do it, it's suggesting where your psak is going to end up. The first way we had it, it sounded like the Gemara kept on pushing to the conclusion that they are not mimayit the estate, right? Even a Baal Chov is not mimayit. Maybe this person isn't. Maybe this person. How about the Baal? Maybe even the Baal Chov isn't mimayit the estate. If you go in the opposite direction, then it means we're pushing for a conclusion to say they are mimayit. Fine. Let's say the Baal Chov is mimayit. How about the stepdaughter? Fine. Maybe the stepdaughter is mimayit, but how about the widow? So in that way, it's a huge difference which way you frame the question, right? Which way you sort of want, sort of trying to direct the conclusion towards.
Is this the same as asking, you've got the almana, you've got the stepdaughter, you've got banot, you've got banim.
Right.
Who gets paid out first?
No. The Gemara is going to get to that next. No, it's not the same. Meaning, you could sort of say, let's just assume whatever. Let's assume there are how do this, if it's between the, let's look at the next question. It's not the same. This is just a question about the idea of, do we say for zachu behen hayorshim? When we assess it, do we assume that there's value that they inherit, and then and they're not going to totally lose that? The question about how do you pay off all of your different creditors, exactly. Right? The estate has all these various creditors, and what's the order and priorities? To some degree, that's going to be the next question. But people do understand that the way in which we asked the question just now about the widow and the stepdaughter and the creditor, right, based on which way you start, and which, is a huge difference about whether you're seeming to push to a conclusion that it always is mimayit in the estate or that it's never mimayit in the estate.
Yeah, just to make sure that I'm also understanding this. This is assuming there is an estate. So if we gifted it all to the Met, then no one gets anything.
Exactly. Right? Yep. Yeah.
So this issue of not knowing.
Well, the creditor might get, because then he gifted it all because he still has liens on it. Those liens don't go away.
The kids.
Yeah, right.
So the issue of not knowing how long someone's going to live.
Right.
Have poskim taken into account the development of annuities in modern times?
I'm sure they have, but here we weren't even factoring in their lifespan. That was the hard thing about the almana, is that how do you
Yeah.
factor in anything in terms of the what? That's not clear at all. How would you factor in the almanas? What that would mean, right? I don't know.
I mean, the
you know.
concept of life
Right.
expectancy is only
Right.
100 years old.
Right.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah,
So if the father is Shchiv Meirah before he died, gifted everything to his sons,
right.
so then the sons have no obligation for Mizonot for the minor girls after the death.
That's an interesting question.
Rebecca's not allowed to do that, right?
What?
Is would he be allowed to like offer, like
He can do tricks to get stuff around, but that's an interesting question because they still have liens on the estate,
Exactly.
and we've only protected third parties against those liens. So that's an interesting question. We don't protect the Yorshim against liens, obviously, because that would completely undermine it. So if the Yorshim have been made into like have gift recipients, but it's would the
Why should
liens
the Banot
still be valid? Didn't the Gemara ask that? The Gemara asked that. The Gemara said, well, it asked it by a matnas shchiv meirah. It says if a matnas shchiv meirah works like a matana, the Gemara said, would it be an afkamina about the almanas or nizones? And the Gemara says, of course, almanas would be nizones, but that was a matnas shchiv meirah. That wasn't the last minute before I die. So if it was the last minute before I die, it's not clear what the answer would be. But the Gemara definitely said that in the case of the matnas shchiv meirah, that would not undermine the right, the almana and the daughters. It's a good question if it was a case of like a matana a minute before he died. Is that what it was? Hold on.
I feel like it might be a machloket Tosfot and Rashbam that like Tosfot who thinks the Banim always have it all anyway and are just giving it out to the girls. Like it's their property anyway, so if it's their property because the father gave it to them, so they're still responsible.
Right, although it's still not a personal obligation, it's still very much as a form of a lien. The question is the lien basically a lump sum collectible at once or like ongoing? No, that's not that. It's a different Gemara. Anyway, I have to look. It's a good question. Okay, but the Gemara certainly said in the case of a matnas shchiv meirah that it would not undermine the widow's right to the estate. What would be if it was actually a matnas bari done like a matnas shchiv meirah to take effect a minute before or something like that? That would be a different story. I have to find that Gemara.
Okay.
All right, but anyway, let's take a look. So the Gemara says like this. Almanasa ubas ezemehen kodemis. Let's say you had a small estate and there wasn't enough money even to support the girls and there was a widow. Okay. Does either one do they all get supported equally? And when it runs out equally at the same time for everyone? Or do you prioritize one person's claim over another? So anyway, so that was after all these questions of is it mimite the estate? After all these questions of the creditor and the widow, there was this one final question of forget mimite the estate. If it's competing claims of the widow and the daughters, does any one of them have precedent? So he said in all these questions, leave, come back tomorrow. He also, when he came back tomorrow, Amalei, Pashut miyachada. I have at least one answer for you. I don't really answer all those questions about the widow and the stepdaughter and the creditor and whether it's considered merubim v'nismatu or not. That I don't know. But I have an answer for your last question. The Amar Rabbi Yava, Amar Rabbi Yasi, Asu Almana Itzel Abbas, Kibas Itzel Ha'achim B'Nechasim Muatim. They made a widow vis-a-vis the daughter, like the daughter vis-a-vis the sons, when there's only a small estate. What does that mean? Ma bas etzel ha'achim, habas nizonos v'achim yishalu al ptachim. The same way, the support of the daughter comes before the sons. The daughter gets supported, and the sons have to go begging. Okay, if it's a small estate. Ava mana etzel abbas, mana nizones v'habas tishalu al ptachim. The widow is supported, and the daughters go knocking on the doors. Now, why do you think she takes precedence? So, you said it makes sense. Why does it make sense?
Well, first of all, in American law, the spouse inherits right now anyway.
Okay.
This whole business of children getting anything doesn't.
Okay.
although it doesn't apply to French law. But I mean, the daughters are more likely to, they're young, they're more likely to be able to get married.
Okay.
They have an older widow than she's also.
Right. So I would say, so you could say the daughters are more likely to be able to get, to young, to maybe to
Doesn't
start
help if they're
getting,
2 years old.
earning some money, get married off, etc. The other way to look at, I agree with that. And the other way to look at it is from the perspective of the guy getting married, who's stipulating, who's the one that's obligating himself to his current wife and to his future daughters. So even though, so the person he's marrying right now is this woman. So to think that he's sort of prioritizing his obligations to this woman over some future yet unborn daughters, right, makes sense. And you could say the opposite. At the end of the day, person's children are his own, are his own progeny, his own blood, his spouse, maybe, who knows how their marriage goes over the course of the years. But still, at the time when he's stipulating at the ksuva, he's got this woman. It makes sort of sense to think that he's prioritizing his responsibilities to her. So that's actually what we say in the end, that comes first.
So it makes a difference how old these little girls are?
Correct. Okay. Yeah. I mean, somebody would have to, they have to assign some apotropos or something, right? I don't know. What happens if somebody dies and he has zero money to his estate? Everybody has to go begging. What are you supposed to do? Okay. Admin Omen. Now, Admin says, what? Just because I'm a male, I'm going to lose out? Meaning in the case when it's a small estate, the girls are going to get supported and I'm going to get nothing. So presumably he was saying like logic at least would dictate. There's a question we said yesterday, whether it means that he's actually arguing as to the halacha, but whether he's disagreeing about the halacha, at least logic would dictate that I would also get supported equally to the to the daughters. So the Gemara says, "My Ka'amar." Now, why does he think that just because he's a man he should have equal rights? Okay, so Amar Abaye. Here's what he's saying. Okay. Here's what he's saying. Look, I'm a man. I'm on a higher spiritual plane than these women. I could be learning Torah. So my support should come before the support of the women. So I'm going to leave Rava. So Rava says, Elameata, manda asik b'Torah hu diyaris. Lo asik b'Torah lo yaris. What? Do you think inheritance is determined based on who's learning Torah? So if you got 3 sons and one of them's in yeshiva and 2 of them aren't, maybe only the one who's learning in yeshiva gets the inheritance. It's all very nice to think that you're more valuable, because of your Torah learning. But since when do we see that has legal implications in areas of Yerusha? That's a complete non-legal argument. Okay, so Ella Amar Rava, so rather Rava says Hachikam. No, my point is forget that. Forget some larger existential claim. I have a legal privilege. Men in general are privileged within the legal system, and I will show you that we're privileged within the legal system in this case too. Because if it's a large estate, I'm going to get, as a son, I'm going to get the actual inheritance of the estate. You could also have said, if there's only boys and no girl, well, I guess that's the point. If there's boys and girls, the boys inherit, but they only inherit if it's a large estate. Okay, so if it's a multi-million-dollar estate, the girls will get $10,000, and I, the boy, will get the whole huge estate. So clearly, I am privileged in this system, and since I'm privileged, I should get supported even in the case of when it's a small estate. So should I lose out? And the answer could be like yes. Like maybe it's not a question about privilege. You're privileged, and they're and they're underprivileged. I mean that is what it is, but maybe what it is you have certain rights and they have different rights. You get a larger estate and they have more protected support because boys can go out and it's more easy for them to knock on the doors and to earn a living and whatever. So yeah, it's not like you're always better. Sometimes you really win out because of that privilege. Sometimes you lose, okay? There are different considerations. I do think it is interesting, the argument of it does get a little bit to the idea about look, obviously it's a sensitive issue, like Rav Moshe Feinstein was once asked about the fact about, sort of the bracha of Shelo Asani Isha. Does that sort of show that Judaism considers women to be on a lower plane, spiritual plane than the men? I'm sure you're all familiar with the various answers and apologetics and so on. But sometimes this phrase of Roy Lasok B'Torah is used as a way of indicating that like men are seen as, existentially higher. One place you have it is Machlokas Beis Hillel Beis Shammai about whether the mitzvah of Pru or Vu is about boy and a girl or 2 boys. And Beis Shammai says it's about 2 boys because they're royal asok b'Torah. So it sort of seems to say it's very nice. You can't repopulate a world with all boys. Okay, but nevertheless, he doesn't see it. What?
Beis Shammai says a boy and a girl.
No, Hillel says a boy and a girl. Beit Shammai says 2 boys. So anyway. All right. So it's interesting that seeing that brought in, that wasn't just chance happening to mention Torah. It seems to be a pointer to a sort of larger type of an argument about.
So what do we say about
that.
what's like what do we say about those? We've had like 15 different positions. I don't even know what we have any conclusion.
Well, no, we don't have a conclusion about the case about whether it's about these various debts that are owed, whether it's considered merubim v'nismatu or just muratim. We don't have a conclusion. I know how we would pass on the matter.
Like Admon.
Yeah, so we said yesterday that the Rashbam says we rule like Admon, and Tosu says we don't rule like Admon, and he brings he says the fact the Gemara basically always ignores Admon when it discusses the scenarios of a small estate or whatever, So Tosu thinks that Admon isn't really arguing; he's just pointing out the irony. Okay, let's read at least the next Mishnah. Now look at this, we're falling behind. Hiniach banimu banos v'tumtum. Okay, now we're getting interesting. Okay, a tumtum is not a hermaphrodite. That's an androgynous who has both male and female genitalia. A tumtum, the genitalia has either not descended or it's covered up, so you don't know yet. Where the presumption is he only has one set of genitalia, but it's indeterminate at this stage. Okay, so bisman shanachasim merubim. So if it's a large estate, they've inherited many millions of dollars, and the girls get $10,000, whatever their support. So the boys say to him, "Oh, we think you're a girl. Go, just get the support with the girls."
Yeah, then the girls.
Now the girls could say, "We think you're a boy. Go get from the part they inherited." So the point seems to be that the question is he able to do this? But he would come with a claim against the entire estate. And the most that he can say, like Mima, is the most he's entitled to from the estate is what a girl would get. Right, so so that's what he wanted. He doesn't take away from the girls, right? All the girls get.
The boys effectively lose that little bit.
Oh, they only lose a little bit, right? Okay, so if it's a small estate, and he says, "Hey, I'm entitled to get supported. I don't have to go begging." They say, "No, we think you're a male, and you're not, and you can't prove you're a female, and you're entitled to get supported. So you go begging." Now, so that's sort of tying up to the previous mission. Now, once we're dealing with tumtum, we look at another case. Omer, if my wife gives birth to a boy, she should get $100. Let her take $100. I'll give her $100 gift. I'm sorry, you're right. He should. The boy should. Thank you. The boy, I'll put a $100 bond away for my son. So Yalda Zachar Tomana. That's not a big chiddush. Presumably he did this through a kinyan. Okay, like I said to Michael here, give me your handkerchief. I'll take this handkerchief in exchange. You be kona on behalf of my unborn child. If he's a boy, you'll be kona $100 on behalf of my unborn child. Okay, if he said, if I say, and if it's a girl, you should be kona on behalf of her $200, and it was a girl, so $200. Okay, now it's not a big chiddush. The big chiddush really is that he's able to be kona for an Uber. You might say he can't be kona anything on behalf of an unborn child. The other thing that the Gemara says, and this is exactly maybe done as a critique to Admon or whatever, the irony here is that it seems to be I'm happier if I have a girl than a boy, right? I'm willing to set aside more money. Maybe I just need to protect a girl more than a boy, okay? But anyway, that's an interesting reading that in juxtaposition with Admon, setting up the scenario that I'm gifting more money to my unborn daughter than to my unborn son. Okay, now, let's say Im Zocher Money in the Cave of Masayim. If it's a boy, let it be 100. If it's a girl, it's 200. The Yalda Zachar in the Keva. And now the simple read of this is it was twins. Zachar Noto Mana in the Keva and the Tas Masayim. Then both of the conditions are met, and the boy gets 100, the girl gets 200. The Rashbam disagrees with this read. He thinks that if I say Im Zachar Mana in the Keva Matayim, if I'm assuming there only to be one child, and it turned out to be twins, and I didn't expect it, then my condition wasn't met at all, and nobody gets anything. Okay, and he reads the Mishnah, Zachar v'nikeva, meaning if it's a boy or if it's a girl, meaning he reads the Vav as an or, which then just makes it very obvious. If I say if it's a boy, let it be 100. If it's a girl, let it be 200. Then if it's a boy, he gets 100. If it's a girl, he gets 200. Which we had to book. Except before, I only said if it's a boy, 100. In that case, if it was a girl, she gets nothing. And I say girl 200. If it was a boy, he gets nothing. And here I covered my bases, so whichever it is, that's what they'll get. So it's an interesting question that if I say if it's a boy X and a girl Y and it's twins, the pshat of the Mishnah is both of the kids get. The Rashban says I wasn't expecting that and they get nothing. Anyway, but now let's get to the real punchline at the end of the Mishnah. Yalda tumtum. Okay, so I said if it's a boy X, a girl Y, and it's a tumtum. So you might say, well, let him at least get 100, the lesser of the two, right? So Eino Notel, he doesn't get anything. Now this is an opinion that tumtum is not a suffix. Tumtum is birya bifnei atzma. Now that is much more of a logical position by an androgynous. An androgynous has both genitalia. A tumtum has one set of genitalia that we don't know it yet. Okay, and nevertheless, this is a position that since that's an unusual configuration of the body, okay, it's not like it's just we're ignorant, that it makes the person's, sex in itself a different category. So this is all very nice, it's actually quite interesting, right? Sort of the very, contemporary thing about that, not a binary sort of gender, that there's, intersex and other types of things. Halacha actually realizes it, and even in a case where it's not both genitalia, at least according to this opinion. So in that case, neither condition is met. This child is neither male nor female and doesn't get either. Okay. Whatever child, whether as long as the child is healthy, right? Whether it's a boy or a girl, let him get 100. Fine. That's also not much of a chiddush. Going back to the earlier issue, if there's no other kids, then he gets it all, because whether as a boy or a girl, if he's not competing with any other siblings, then he's the only heir, then he gets it all. Okay, so the interesting question is going to be, is this tumtum a birya bifnei, like in his own category of sexual identity, or is it considered to be a suffix? So we'll pick up with that tomorrow. All right.